Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Anything that comes along that's better than what I've got, that's what I want, Holmes said. Open at the top. That's the name of my talk today. I'm Ursula Lentine, and I'm very happy to be here. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Namaste. The God in me recognizes the God in you. Recognizes, reconnects, becomes aware of again. And I believe that when we have that connection is where God is. When there's an action, that's where God is. There's a unification, a gathering, a coming together, a remembering. And when I say namaste, I'm connecting with the God in you. And why not stop? Start at the highest common denominator. Why not go there? Why not go from a place of love, a place of unification? When the God in me and my ego self get along, that's where reality is. That's where duality ends. But that's another talk. Open at the top. There was a book written about Holmes called Open at the Top. A gentleman by the name of Neil Vaughn wrote it. And he was not a student of science of mind. He was an author. And a very good author because he thoroughly studied his subject, which was Holmes. He read all of Holmes's writing. He did interviews and read a lot about the man and his teaching. So he integrated as much as he could to discover what the essence of Holmes was. And for him to say open at the top, that's a pretty big compliment. I've always thought of Holmes as a foundational guy, law and order. He took all kinds of information from all kinds of teaching, all kinds of spiritual leaders, and he laid it out, and he organized it, he sifted it, he filtered it, and what he found was foundation. What is the common denominator of all these teachings throughout the ages? So I always thought of Holmes as a foundational guy. So when I started tripping out on this guy's thinking open at the top, I said, okay, this is a new perception for me. And as I thought about it, I said, well, yeah, sure, that would make sense. Because his thinking is outward, and evolution, which is continual, which is change, is always bubbling up, changing, changing. And I like to think of evolution as a root beer float, and you blow into the straw, and you create bubbles. And the bubbles multiply and multiply and multiply, and they grow and they overflow. That's how I picture evolution. And I think Holmes had that kind of evolutionary thinking. Now, when I think of what Holmes has taught us, I think he's saying get off of the book, take the teaching, own it, experience it, and live it. And for me, that's an open at the top kind of thinking. To move from the book, from the box, move outside of the box, and experience it. He would say your authority is not in your word, but in your use of it, in your accomplishment. Demonstration is not complete until it is manifested. So he's thinking about taking the teaching and growing it. Now, when you think of the term open at the top, is there an image that comes to your mind? What do you think of? And does anybody have any images?
Kind of a firecracker.
Popping out? What came to me was a box. A box with an open top. So a box needs a foundation, otherwise it's not a box. And it has 4 stable walls to it. So the stability of the teaching, the laws, the order, the common reasoning, the sense that it makes, all comes from the foundation. But it's open at the top. So you could put something that is bigger than the box into the box. But the box gives it stability and it sits on its foundation. Anything you put into the box automatically drops to the law, to the foundation, and is tested there. Can the law support this idea in my mind or within the box? So when Holmes is saying open at the top, he's saying whatever you put into the foundational thinking of metaphysics can grow. So if you think of a planter box, I think that would be a perfect image of what Holmes is talking about. You plant a seed in the foundation, and it grows and grows, and the box can support a plant that can grow to the ceiling. So this is a way for me to look at this teaching, move the box, open the book, and live it. There is an idea of the roller coaster. So if you're studying a roller coaster or you're looking at roller coasters, you can read about roller coasters, but let me tell you, until you've been on a roller coaster, you don't know anything about roller coasters. It's the experience. So I think in this teaching, it's the experience of where we need to go. So also when I was thinking about boxes, I was thinking about church. And I think the traditional churches have their roofs on too tight. And I think there's too much structure and ritual there, and that's why they're not moving with the times. With our teaching, it's very fluid. There's a lot of ability and movement and expression, different ways that it can express itself. And I think with the information age coming as it does, the growth that's happening, think of a 4-year-old and how much information is being bombarded at them at all times. And as they grow up, they need a teaching that is flexible. A box is also portable. It's movable. So we need this kind of thinking to be very changeable. It's got to grow all the time. It's got to express in different ways. Always the same foundation, but always changing and always adapting to what's going on in our world today. And the other thing that I think of when I think of open at the top is a toy. Dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 da. Jack in the Box. So Jack in the Box is kind of a strange toy, because if you look at it logically, you would think, okay, I get it, the clown jumps out of the box, big deal. After the 3rd time, the kid's going to get it. There's no surprise. But Jack in the Box, when it is experienced, is different when you look at it logically. So there's a little anticipation that builds up, and say you're 3 years old, not illogical, you're not in your head yet, you're kind of into your experience. The anticipation of something happening, that something's growing, something's gonna, you just go crazy, and then it happens, and you're like, ah! It's an ecstasy moment for a 3-year-old. And if you look at that and look at it metaphysically, what's happening is the child is creating an experience. Because when you're 3 years old, you're not very much cause. Everything around you is happening because of other people. So when you can actually make something happen, it's a very joyful, creative process. So when they're turning the crank and they learn with their other hand, they must hold the box down but not cover the lid. They're following the law of the Jack in the Box. But when we're doing metaphysically our own Jack in the Box, we have to put our hands on the law and use the law and work the law. And the anticipation that builds up is our focusing. So when we're doing treatment and we're focusing on an idea and we're investing into that idea and we're having faith that the laws work, out it comes, and we have an anticipation building, an excitement, expectation. So when our Jack in the Box pops out and it manifests, we're like, yeah, that's really cool. That's where it's exciting. And it doesn't manifest into a soldier. It manifests into this silly clown that's moving around, that's happy. And it makes a happy, joyful experience. It's kind of a celebration. Then I started thinking about clowns. And I said, okay, let's go to a universal clown. Not the clowns that are very funny, but a really, really, really good clown, like a Cirque du Soleil clown. Or in Paris, they have the clowns on the streets acting and performing. And a clown, just like a jester, is able to take a common occurrence and look at it and look at the absurdity in it and make it humorous. And when you're coming from a higher plane, a higher mental state, you are able to get out of the drama of a normal situation and look at it in a new perspective way. And the clown is so intelligent that it can put in a new perspective with a sense of humor. So when we can get to a place where life is funny, life is a game, life is a joke, we've mastered this teaching. And I think clowns are masters, but because they can be childlike, they've got it. And we've been taught that ultimate thinking is a childlike. It's a very simplified way. So if a corporate guy's walking down the street with his cell phone and his briefcase and he's acting all important and there's a crowd around and the crowd goes around and gives him a tweak in the butt and he jumps, everybody thinks it's hilarious because he's taking the man out of his model and bringing it to a normal human experience that we all would react in. So it's kind of funny that clowns can bring new perspective to us. And what they also do is they unify our thinking. They unify our laughter. And we all become one. We all become the clown, but the clown is nobody and everybody at the same time. And also, if you look at a clown, they usually have very large shoes on. So to me, they have a firm foundation in the law. So they know the law, but with their creativity, they can play with the law. So as I was thinking about clowns, I said, you know, it's amazing how wherever you look for God, it's there. So I started reading more about the clowns on the internet. And I said, okay, what else is in here? Okay, what else is in here? And they said that clowns throughout time and throughout many cultures and countries often show up during a time of a ritual called passage of rite. So I thought, okay, passage of rite, that's kind of like bar mitzvah, where, you know, a child becomes an individual, or where there's a transition between their identities. So I said, well, let me really figure out what passage of rite is talking about. And it is that, but there's a man named von Gennep who did some studies about passage of rite throughout the cultures. And he says he's found that there's a three-phase step in there. One is separation. So there's a separation, just like Holmes separated all the teachers and unified the teaching, but there's a separation process, a breaking down process. The middle one, which I found was very interesting, is called liminality. And liminality is a period of transition where your normal sense of reality becomes changed and you are able to relax. And in that relaxed state, you can have new perceptions. And then the third part is reintegration. And Mr. von Gennep discovered that in many current situations, we lose out on that reintegration. We skip that step. So a kid goes away to camp, separates from his family, his normal lifestyle, sees new perspective, but the reintegration is not a part of the process. It just kind of has to happen. So back to namaste and that connection and that reintegration and the clown creating laughter and that circular completion is where I want to go in my teaching. And I don't want to be Jack in the Box anymore. I want to be Jack in the Beanstalk. I want to grow into a whole new reality with this teaching as my foundation. I want to express it and explore it and be everything that I can be from this kind of foundation. I want to reach a whole new dimension, and I want to be the golden goose laying egg, the goose that lays the golden egg. That's what I want to be, and I want to discover where I can take this teaching and what I can do and how I can express it and explore it. So this is the truth in my life, and I expect that this is the truth in your life, and so it is.
And so